Okay, so we are going to go over closing costs and net sheets today. And the biggest question that surrounds closing costs is who pays for what? And if you've asked this question before, you've probably been told by a broker that everything is negotiable. With that being said, there are guidelines that can be found within the Florida Residential Contract for Purchase. So, what does the seller typically pay for? If you look on page 3, paragraph 9, section A, you're going to find some guidelines here. So that's going to be things like doc stamps, recording fees, estoppel fees, and lien searches. So this is very slim pickings as far as what a seller is obligated to pay for in order to close. You'll also see here at the bottom, this is where we state what their repair limits are and what they're going to be obligated to pay in regards to things like general repair items, WDO treatment, and then permit.
Right.
Out of a seller's fees and charges, most of these expenses cannot be shopped for, meaning they cannot shop around for a better figure or rate. So things like lien searches, documentary stamp taxes, deed doc fees, these types of things, there's like a mathematical algorithm for that, and it's not going to change. If the seller is choosing the title company and paying for that title policy, that can be shopped for. That does change a little bit depending upon the title company. Sellers can also shop around for who actually does the repair work on their home. So as long as they stay within the terms of the contract, typically buyers ask for things like roofing, electrical work, these types of things to be done by a licensed professional. So they can shop around for those fees, but they do have to stay within the parameters and the obligations laid out to them within the contract.
And
Right. So what does a buyer typically pay for? You're actually going to see typically a lot of these little costs pile up on a buyer. So this is also in page 3, paragraph 9. This is section B, and this is typically what a buyer pays for. Anything that you see that's a line item with the word loan, recording, anything like that that has to do with obtaining a mortgage or a loan, that type of thing is always going to be on the buyer. Other things like HOA and condominium application and transfer fees, title policies, anything with to do with the lender, that type of thing are going to be paid by the buyer. So we see that lined up here for us in the contract.
right.
So when you are calculating a buyer's closing cost, one easy thing to forget, which we don't want to forget, is the earnest money deposit that they paid up front. The most popular amount being $1,000. So when a buyer opens escrow on a home and they have an intention to close, they typically pay some money down, and this is typically $1,000. So when a buyer goes to close, they've already put $1,000 down. So don't forget to factor in that credit for their earnest money deposit, whether it be $1,000, $500, $5,000. Out of a buyer's fees and charges, a lot of things can be shopped for here. Things like surveys, home inspections, WDO inspections, all of these rates are going to vary a little bit depending on who you go with. Loan expenses and charges, those also vary depending upon the organization. Some are a lot more expensive. Some have hidden fees and things like that. So these are all things that can be shot for a buyer that can make a big impact on their bottom line. So those are typically buyer costs. And then we saw the typical seller costs. There are a couple of things that are gonna be placed. The obligation will be placed as you're filling out the contract or as a seller is choosing an offer. The first of which is paragraph 9, section C, line 172, and I've pulled it here for you. That is whoever designates the closing agent. Whoever designates that agent, which is the title company, they're going to be responsible for paying the owner's title policy and charges. And this is one of our most popular questions. Well, how much is that? What is that? What does that mean? So that is actually roughly 0.5 to 1% of the purchase price across the board. So there will be a cheat sheet, a title insurance cheat sheet at the end of this that we'll look at to kind of give you a rough estimate. But $100,000 is going to equal $1,000 title policy and charges. Another thing that's going to vary depending upon who's assigned in the contract is the home warranty. But that's pretty cut and dry. You can find that in paragraph 9, section E, line 187. I hope you're noticing a theme here. Closing costs are derived basically from paragraph 9. And also, you do have to factor in anything that's placed in the additional terms. Paragraph 9, section F is the special assessments. So special assessments are things like fees and fines levied upon a property for improvements. So if the city comes in and repaves the roads, if all of the utilities are placed underground, or if HOA is doing common body improvements, these are all things that could be assessments that the seller is paying for, in payments. So be careful here. Seller paying those in full prior at time of closing is the most common, but you're representing your client, so you do need to look out for their best interests. So what else may factor in when calculating these closing costs? There's lots of little things that will come up on one and you'll never see it again. Some of these things, of course, we do need to be mindful of every time. So those are considerations added to the additional terms. That would be seller contributions, seller to pay up to 3% of the buyer's closing costs and prepaids. We see that sometimes, maybe not so much in this market right now, but we'll see how that goes. Another thing are property taxes for the year. So those have to be calculated and prorated depending upon who's paid the taxes for the year. The BHGRE admin fee, that's another one that we absolutely need to be mindful of and make sure that ends up on the CD, as well as the seller's mortgage payoff. So these will always be kind of a little bit circumstantial based on the situation. So this here, you guys are going to get this, by the way, at the end of class. This is how we calculate property tax prorations. And it actually is quite simple, although it can be a little bit of a headache. But there is an easy way for you guys to come up with an estimation in order to give your buyer an idea of what that might look like. ESCPA.org and SRCPA.org. Those are our tax assessors for Escambia and Santa Rosa County. They both actually have a tax estimation tool. This comes in handy at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, taxes pretty much have already come out. Sellers most of the time have already paid it. So depending upon the time of year, this might be a tool that you'd like to use. We used a property. Our tax estimation for that year is $2,378.45. So take that estimation and you're going to divide it by the number of days in the year, which is 365.
Yeah.
All right, so we take that number, 2,378, divide it by 365, and you get a tax rate of $6.52 per day. So your next step then is to take a look at the contract. What is the closing date? And that's going to tell you within that calendar year, how long did the seller own the house? And then how long is the buyer going to own the house? So then you do the math, calculate. The closing date in this example is March 18th, which means out of 365 days, the seller is going to be responsible for 81 days of taxes, and the buyer will be responsible for 284 days of taxes. So let's say the bill has been paid for this year. So the seller is going to be responsible for $527.82. The buyer is going to owe the seller $1,850.63. So in this case, if the bill's been paid for the year, the buyer's going to owe the seller. If the bill hasn't been paid yet, the seller will just provide a credit to the buyer of $527.82. Hope that makes sense. But you guys will get this in a handout at the end of class. And we're moving on. So what does a net sheet look like? It's very complicated, or it looks complicated at first glance. You have all these little itemized things, and then who pays for what goes on which person's line. And the point of this class is to help you guys demystify this. Not only does demystify the language in the contract, but to also demystify this net sheet. So there's a lot of fees here, but when we take the language of the contract and we break it down, this is actually what is a good representation of who's going to pay for what. So the seller is going to be in red, the buyer is going to be in blue. So a common theme that you'll notice as you're doing these net sheets is that the seller pays for a few things that kind of are larger amounts, and then the buyer pays for a couple of different things, or you know, numerous things that add up to a large amount as well. So it just breaks down a little bit differently. Deed doc stamps, this is going to be a seller fee along with the real estate fee that's agreed upon in the listing agreement, and then buyer closing costs, if that is a term of the contract. As I said in the beginning, anything with the word mortgage or loan, recording, that type of thing, that's going to be a buyer responsibility. Home inspection, termite inspection, those types of things, those are buyer due diligence. So those are going to fall under the buyer as well. A couple of things that to keep in mind that might fall on one party or another, those are going to be the owner's title, the title policies. So that was in paragraph 9, you know, section C or something like that, who pays for and who picks the title company. So this is going to be in the language of the contract. Underwriting fees, if it's a VA FHA based upon the financing terms, the seller might be responsible for this. So you will have to watch out for that. Homeowner's warranty, that was negotiated within the contract. And then the property tax proration, this is just going to pay a change based upon the time of the year, and then who's paid that, if they paid the bill. Another thing to keep in mind is the termite and pest inspection. If it is not VA, it's a buyer responsibility. If it is a VA loan, the seller is actually obligated to pay for that WDO fee. It's just a weird thing about VA loans to keep in mind. So hopefully this demystifies it a little bit. Some charges will vary based upon the terms of the contract or financing. So that was the home warranty, that WDO thing, that type of thing. Some of these charges you're not going to know without obtaining that information from that party. So mortgage fees, loan fees, these types of things, you'll have to go out and ask for them. Title fees always also differ based upon which title company you're using. So you can always give an estimate of what their closing costs are going to be, but at the end of the day, it is always an estimate. And you know, the more information you get from those parties, the more accurate your estimation is going to be. Okay, so here's what I've done. I have actually taken a contract. We're actually going to take a contract and turn it into a list of facts and figures, a closing cost net sheet for a seller or a buyer. So this is Wildhurst Trail. Our purchase here is $399,500. Our earnest money deposit is $4,000. Down payment here is $34,550. Hope I'm reading 300. Yeah, hope I'm reading that right. Okay, we're gonna go on to section 9. That was the biggie. That was what told us most of our little terms here. Seller is obligated to pay what looks like $4,500 in repairs. So up to $4,500 in repairs. So if we're a listing agent and we're preparing a net sheet for a seller, we're always going to give them the total of this because they could spend only $3,000, but we want to give them worst case scenario so that they're walking away with, even more money than we told them they would. We want it to be a positive scenario. Cost to be paid by buyer. We've got all the standard things here. There's nothing in our other section. Line 176 is marked. So the buyer is going to designate the closing agent and pay for the owner's policy and charges. The seller has been designated to buy a home warranty of $730. And the seller, if there are any, will pay assessments in full prior to time of closing. So if you're representing a seller, this might be something that the seller's aware of. Hopefully they know what they're paying for, but the title company, it's their job to make sure that that is settled and taken care of. So we're going to keep on moving here. A lot of this doesn't really have anything to do with closing costs. We do want to make sure, though, that we're checking out the additional terms because this is where things can always change. Terms can be added. People can be made responsible for things that don't really have a place in the contract. Oh, and we get lucky. This one's simple, but this is where you would see seller to provide a usable and current survey. That might be something that you see, closing costs, things like that. This is where you're going to find those additional terms. Okay, so we've taken this information, we've taken this contract, and we've extrapolated all of the numbers from a contract. I always found it so interesting how a 13-page document can be broken down into a list of fact and figures. But here it is. We've got the Wildhurst Trail contract, purchase price, down payment, loan amount, and earnest money. We've got the buyer's expenses. We've gone ahead and shopped around. We know the survey is going to be $650. Our home inspection is going to be around $425. And our WDO guy says he can do it for $100. So that's our due diligence for the buyer. Seller expenses, the commission is going to be $23,970. Repairs are going to be $4,500, and our home warranty is $730. This is too high. I did the wrong math here, but we're going to go with it. We're just going to go with that for math's sake. Home warranty $730. Our lender charges, I couldn't calculate these. I had to go to the lender and get these. So our origination fee is $1,200. Our appraisal is going to be $488, and the buyer's not paying any discount points. Title charges, these were obtained from the title company once chosen. Our settlement fee is $425. Title search $75. Municipal lien search is $115. And then our policy charges. A couple of things to remember, our property tax proration, we did the math a little earlier in class. That proration is going to be $527.82. The BHGRE admin fee, the buyer is responsible for this. That's going to be $240. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually take this information. We're going to put it in a net sheet right now.
Okay.
So here's what this net sheet looks like. You guys will actually get an Excel copy of this net sheet as well. So you guys will have a workable sheet that you can take and use for your clients. Just keep a blank copy around. Yeah. All right, so let me get my little cheat sheet here with all our facts and figures. So our property address is 2664 Wildhurst Trail. Type of financing, that loan was conventional. Messed it all up. We don't know the interest rate. That's okay. Our sales price here is $399,500. Just cannot talk. $399,500. Our down payment was $50,000, which makes our mortgage amount $345,500. Okay. So you see here, this Excel sheet is actually going to take this information and it's going to plug it in a couple places where there's already an algorithm in place. So my loan amount, that's going to give me my deduct, or my purchase price is actually going to give me my deduct stamps. By the way, if you just for, future ref, that's going to be 70 cents per $100 of the purchase price. So state transfer tax from the seller to the buyer, the deed cannot be recorded without those stamps attached. So it's the purchase price times 0.7 per every $100.
Right.
Owner's title charges, we were given that by the title company, $2,072.50 for the owner's policy. Mortgagee or the lender's title policy was $25. Cheap.
Yeah.
Intangible tax mortgage, this is another one with an algorithm. It's 0.002 times the mortgage amount. So that's just a tax on the mortgage note, and this will calculate it for you, but you have this here to refer back to just in case. Let's see. Recording deeds. We're going to put 165 here. It's $10 and then an additional $10. Let me see here. Recording deeds. $10 for the first page and then $8.50 for each additional page. And you guys are going to get a cheat sheet with this information. Recording mortgages. We've got $1,258.25. It's $10 for the first page and then $8.50 for each additional page. So these are just fees that are actually levied by either the county or state taxes. So title will be able to give you these figures if you guys don't have your cheat sheet handy. Loan origination fee, this was provided by the lender. That was $1,200. Doc stamps on mortgage. This also has an algorithm here. It's 35 cents per $100. So this calculates it out for me. Our survey, we shopped around. That was $650. The appraisal fee, this is levied by the lender. It was $488. So you guys can see the seller sort of pays these larger amounts and then the buyer pays a lot of smaller amounts that tend to add up. It's a common theme. Homeowner's warranty, this was to be paid by the seller. It was $730, so we'll put that there. The buyer does get a credit for the earnest money. That is going to be $4,000. And so because this is a credit, it's not a deduction, I'm adding a negative here.
Right.
Keep that in mind. Real estate fee, we're going to leave that 6% of the purchase price. Home inspection fee, that was $425. And then our termite and pest inspection was a cool $100. We did our property tax proration. That was $527.82. The seller has already paid for that. So they're going to get a credit of $527.82. And the buyer will be charged $587.82. See how that works? Okay, the BHGRE admin fee, make sure you guys add that in for whoever you're representing. We don't want to forget that. And you do want to double check the title company's work because sometimes they forget that as well. So definitely make sure that's on your closing statement at the end of closing. And then one last thing, we have repairs. So the buyer or the seller was obligated to a certain amount of repairs. That added up to 4,500. We are not sure that they're going to spend that much, but worst case scenario, they're going to spend about 4,500.
Hey Blair,
Yes.
is that property tax proration, is that supposed to be the same amount, just one's
Yes,
negative?
it is. So, so in this scenario,
But it's different there.
Oh, did I type it wrong? Yes, that's just dyslexia.
Okay,
My
just
bad. 527.82. Thank you, ma'am. Boom. Okay. So what we've done is we've taken the contract, we've taken information that we obtained from the lender, and hopefully some information we were able to obtain from the title company, and we've built out what's going to be fairly accurate net sheet for the buyer or the seller. So the seller is going to pretty much expect a closing cost of 31,000. The buyer's going to expect closing cost around $5,000. So what does this mean? You guys are also going to have these little modules down here, and they're going to help you guys out. So estimated monthly payments, this is by the lender. You can get this information from the lender, but this is what we're actually looking at right here. The buyer's estimated totals. What is the buyer going to have to bring to the table? Your closing costs that we just calculated were $5,000 and $5,051.82, along with a down payment of $50,000. They're going to need to wire about $55,000 to the closing table. Over here to my right is the seller's estimated net. So they have a selling price of $399,500. Their closing costs are $31,000. Let's say they had a mortgage payoff of $75,000. They're going to expect to walk away with $293,031.32. Pretty cool.
Yep.
So that's basically how a net sheet works. Hopefully it does make sense, but you guys are going to get, you'll get this net sheet that's pre-formatted with some of these calculations, and you'll also get a cheat sheet. I do want you to take note. This is the handout that you're going to get. So you're going to get this example. You're going to get all of this language that we've talked about, and you're also going to get this here. So this is title insurance rates. So when a buyer says, okay, well, if I pick the title company, how much am I going to pay? You guys can pull this up and use it as an estimate. So it starts at 100,000 and goes up. So 100,000, it's about 0.5 of the purchase price. Let's see, let's find 200,000. 200,000, also about 0.5. And then you have the doc stamps as well. So you guys will actually have this as a quick reference guide to let them know about what they'd expect to pay if they want to pick the title company, or if they want to make their offer more attractive. That's something that they can do. You guys are also going to get this. It's a closing cost cheat sheet. So this is basically a list of all of those phrases on the net sheet. The doc stamps on the deed. What is that? Owner's title insurance. Hopefully we understand what that is. Survey fees, insurance premiums. I mean, you name it. If it's on that sheet, it's probably going to be on here so that you guys know what you're looking at and know how to calculate it. So hopefully this is exciting. I found it very helpful.
Very exciting.
Yay. Okay, do you guys have any questions for me before we end the class?
I have one question.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the property tax prorations, and you were using the estimated, and you said that that was good at the beginning of the year, and then you used an example that, well, they had paid their taxes, so but the way our property taxes are paid in November for the year,
Mhm.
chances are that's not gonna be the case. Is
Right.
that correct? Yeah.
Right. So let me see where I can find that. So there's a tax estimation tool, and you have to remember that as an agent, we're giving them an estimation. You have to basically give them this information as a guide and let them know that it may not be 100% accurate. But let me show you. Hopefully I can pull this up fairly easily. This will just help them get an idea of what they're looking at. So that's going to change depending upon the millage rates and all, all kinds of things with the taxes. So this is
Yeah.
our property appraiser website. We're going to go to escpa.org, record search, and real estate.
Because on the owner's taxes they may have had all kinds of exemptions for.
Yeah, they could be a
homestead.
veteran. They could, yeah,
Disabled
absolutely.
veteran, which they
Homestead
pay.
and all of that.
Yeah,
Very true. But if it's been paid for the year, a buyer would just owe whatever's left on that year. And then their taxes for the next year could totally be different.
right, but chances are they're not gonna be paid for the year unless it's later on after
Yeah.
the tax bills come out.
Yes, very true. So right here, you'll see tax estimator. And you can pull this up and it actually lets you say, okay, our purchase price was $399,500. And you can plan out those exemptions if you know them.
See, I did not realize that was available.
Isn't it? Yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, that is nice.
I didn't know that was available either, and I think that's lovely.
Yeah. So this one's different. It's different property and all that, but they actually estimate for the year the property taxes are $4,908. So you can actually take that number and then break it down and show them what they might be expected to, pay at the end of the year.
That's
This
great.
is for Escambia County, correct?
This is for
Yeah.
Escambia. I believe that Santa Rosa also has this.
Okay, because I'm out in Santa Rosa, so.
Well, let's see. I don't use them a lot, but I do use their property appraiser occasionally. And I know it's funny how different they are. Let's see, search.
Just tax estimator.
Oh, was that on the previous screen?
Yep, right down there.
Oh, look at that. They got their own thing. So there you go. You'll just have to select your county and then your exemptions. Okay, so yeah, they totally do the same thing.
Well, that's some good information.
Yeah, this really comes in handy.
The other website was.
So
ES
they're escpa.org, and then Santa Rosa's SRCPA. And there's a lot of fun stuff on there. If you guys actually get in there and like play with it, our counties do a really good job of giving us a lot of public, useful information. Some counties, like in Alabama, they don't give you anything. So we are pretty lucky in that regard.
I don't think Tennessee is very generous with it either.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, but I guess, that's their business. Okay, ladies, so I'm going to send you this. You're going to get everything that we saw today. A video of this is going to be uploaded as well into the training library. So you'll be able to, fall back on it if you need it. And then as always, I'm your girl. If you ever need anything, you guys know you can reach out to me. Okay.
Thank you, Blair.
You guys are
I
so
did not-
welcome.
Blair, I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me